Welcome to Fruity Knitting. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Andrea.
For our new viewers, Fruity Knitting is a 90-minute program that brings you knitting inspiration from around the world, together with little snippets of travel, history and other stories to maybe put a smile on your face and bring a little extra joy to your day.
Yeah. But this episode, or this video in particular, is not at all our normal format, and we're not actually even going to talk about knitting. It's only of interest to long-term viewers. So if this is the first time you've clicked on a Fruity Knitting video to check out what the show's all about, we strongly recommend that you immediately go and check out any of our previous 108 episodes. They're all really great episodes, we think. They're filled with a lot of knitting inspiration and really good technical content that'll help you improve your technique of knitting. If you want an immediate suggestion, we really love our last episode, 108. We think it's a particularly good one. We take you to the island of Fainu in Denmark, and that's where the Fainu Knitting Festival was going to take place. And that episode is just filled with really glorious, visually inspiring knitting and storytelling. So you should have a really great time watching that episode if you want an immediate suggestion. Like I said, this is really not at all about knitting today, and it's only of interest to long-term viewers. So now to the long-term viewers, we don't have any guests on our show today because we have an announcement to make that's of a very serious nature, and we just don't want our news to act as a dampener on on the work of our guests, so that you're thinking about what we have been talking about instead of just relaxing and enjoying an interview with one of our guests. So for now, it's just the two of us.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in really quickly. The news is, and I'm really sorry to have to share this with you, but the news is that I have been diagnosed with a brain tumour. This happened about 2 weeks ago. Excuse me. Happened about 2 weeks ago. It is quite serious. It's very serious. It's located in the cerebellum. It's also in the brain stem itself. So it's kind of back here on the left. It cannot be operated because of the location, so there's no chance of removing it.
And it's fuzzy around the outsides anyway, so it would be difficult, and it's quite central, so it's just having an operation is out of the question.
Out of the question, yeah. So just a bit on the history of this. When we were in Denmark, as Andrea just said, it became clear that I had a problem with my balance. It was strange for me to walk, and I certainly couldn't walk in a straight line. I actually thought to myself, I thought I could actually walk along a straight line on the floor, and then I thought, I can test that. And I did it, and I definitely couldn't. If I'd stayed on the line, I would have fallen over after about 5 or 6 steps. I looked into it a little bit, and I figured I've had problems with my ears. I've had ear infections,
sinus issues.
Sinuses, whatever. So I looked into it, and that was a plausible explanation, that there was just an inner ear infection, and that was affecting my balance. So when we got back from Denmark, I went straight to my ear, nose and throat specialist, and she did a lot of tests and didn't find anything except confirming that there was a balance problem. I went from there to a neurologist, had a lot more tests, and then it went on. And just last Monday, I had an MRI scan, and that showed the tumour. So that was a huge shock for us, of course. What did I want to say? Me right now, my symptoms are pretty similar to what they were 2 weeks ago. So I still have the balance problem. That's okay. I can walk. I'm kind of still functional. I am careful about going up and down stairs, and I make sure I've got hands free in case I stumble or anything like that.
You were nauseous?
At the beginning, that was interesting because it affects your balance. It's a little bit like being on a ship. The world isn't moving the way your brain is telling you it should be. And so I got nauseous, a bit like seasickness. That was pretty unpleasant, but that's actually gone away. I have some strange things with my eyes where I can't fix on objects very well. So if I'm walking or if somebody walks past me, I won't be able to fix on them and see clearly. I've seen double a little bit. I had a test that I would do each morning to look in the mirror and see if there were 2 eyes looking back or 4. Sometimes there were 4, but at the moment it's pretty consistently 2, so that's a good thing. And the nausea has gone away too. I'm not sure whether I said that.
But you've been tired. You've been very tired.
That's the other thing is just being very tired. I've had some really bad sleep, but I think also I've just got fatigue during the day, which is pretty hard. On the good side, other symptoms that you can have from a brain tumour are really strong headaches and then seizures. So essentially your brain loses control of your muscles and your muscles will spasm and cramp up. I haven't had that. That can go as far as falling unconscious. So I haven't had that, and I'm hoping to stay free of all that for as long as possible. So, and the future is just really uncertain. We really don't know what's coming. That's how it is. So it's been a huge shock for us.
So you're probably wanting to know how we're going to proceed with Fruity Knitting and what we're going to do with the show. So as we say every episode, producing the show is both mine and Andrew's full-time job. And the patron support that we get for the show is our complete income, because we don't have sponsorship and we don't sell anything. So it's our total complete income, and we don't have anything else to fall back on. So we actually have to keep producing the show because we need to pay our bills, and we also have some extra medical expenses now. And we just want to say, like, the last 4 years that we've been doing Fruity Knitting has been a real gift and a real adventure for us. It's been the centre focus of our life. It's every bit of our time and energy has been focused in on Fruity Knitting, and that hasn't been all fun and games at all. It's been very stressful at some times, and it's also meant a lot of sacrifices, both personally and sort of as a family. But at the same time, it's been a real privilege to be able to make it successful, and it's been an adventure, and it's something that we're grateful that we had the opportunity to do. So that has been really important. But the kinds of hours that we were putting into it were really extreme. It's, if you sort of think of dividing your life up into different sections, you've got your full-time work, and then in the evenings you've got a bit of time for your hobby. Most of us, it's all knitting. You've also got a bit of time for entertainment. You've got your weekends and you've got your holidays. Well, all of those segments in our lives were geared around producing great content for the show. And as you can imagine, we were working the kind of hours and also the mental concentration and energy levels that, generally speaking, only business owners who are in the first few years of building up their business can really appreciate, you know, sort of working with that kind of focus and concentration. All of that has to change now because Andrew's health has to come in the very first place, and probably first, second and third place. So we will have a lot more limited time. We'll have limited time in what we can actually invest in the show, and we at this stage have no idea what the regularity of the episodes will be that they come out. As I said, we thoroughly enjoyed the privilege of being able to do this, and if we take Andrew's illness aside just for a moment and we just talk about us as people, we're both, I would say, type A personalities. We're pretty conscientious by nature, and we enjoy putting out our best work. And in some ways, it's actually more stressful not to put out our best work in some kind of bizarre way. But that's the truth of it. So it will be hard and sad for us to have to limit the time that we are able to put into Fruity Knitting and not to be able to put it out as regularly. We have also been very confident about asking for patron support because we know how hard-earned it is. And so everything is completely new to us. But as we said, Andrew's health has to come out, has to be absolutely number one. And we just hope that our patrons will understand this and keep supporting the show despite the changes that have to be made in Fruity Knitting, because we really do need you now. And honestly, right now, we have no idea, we have no idea of the format that Fruity Knitting will be in the future, or the episodes, or the regularity of the episode. So since we found out about this news, I've actually spent every waking hour researching as much as I can to find out about Andrew's tumour and what additional supportive therapies that we can do. Because the thing is with malignant brain tumours, there hasn't been any major breakthroughs in the standard care therapy for this type of cancer in the last couple of decades in comparison to the cancer treatments for other parts of your body. So for instance, if you catch breast cancer early or prostate cancer early, you've got an amazing chance of survival. You know, you can be really fairly confident you're going to be fine if you do things right, and you know, it's not the case for brain tumours. It's a very hard cancer to treat, and I am staying very hopeful, and I am putting in a ton of time to find out everything that we can possibly do to give Andrew just a good fighting chance of being one of the lucky ones. And I'm believing that that's possible. So, sorry for crying, by the way, but...
Yep.
So I'm believing that that's possible. That's where my time has been spent up. We've already made a few drastic changes. Andrew's going to be on an extraordinarily strict diet. I'm going to be on the same diet, so there's no temptations around the house to keep him on the straight and narrow. If we're both on the straight and narrow, it'll just feel like the new norm. Yeah. But there's just a lot of... there's just a lot that I want to be concentrating on to help Andrew. And I'm determined that from my side, he's going to survive.
Yep.
And so at the moment we have no idea about a routine. As you can imagine, it's just all very new. It's been a traumatic shock for both of us. I haven't slept much, and Andrew's not sleeping much, partly because I think that's what brain tumours can do to you, and also probably the stress, and he's stressed about me being stressed, etc. So we need a few weeks just to pull ourselves together in a way, and then sort of settle into more of a routine. Andrew's not allowed to drive or ride his bike, so I have to drive him everywhere for all of his treatments, and that means, of course, that both of us can't be working during that time. So all of these new lifestyle changes have to be figured in, and we just won't know what's possible for a few weeks. At this stage, I'm hoping possibly we get an episode out in 3 or 4 weeks, but I just don't want to think about it for another couple of weeks at all. I really hope our patrons understand this. Now, obviously, there's going to have to be some real changes. I've got some notes here, so I just don't... I've gone a bit brain dead. Okay, so the first thing is our patrons are the most important to us because they make this happen. So they have our absolute priority. From now on, we'll have absolutely no time to answer any questions from any viewers. With our patrons, we ask that you just please have a lot of patience if we don't return your or answer your question for quite a long time, and just understand why. That's one point I want to say. The next point is that we love our show to be a really joyful experience for our viewers, because everybody on a day-to-day level has struggles, whether they've got stress at home or stress at work or their own health issues or whatever. Life is hard and you have to struggle through on a daily basis. And people are just doing the best they can on that level. And then on top of that, there's quite a lot of painful, anxiety-making world news that's going on that's stressing everybody out on top of that. And I think right now the collective unconscious of humanity is pretty stressed out and pretty anxious, and we don't want our show in any way to add to that. So during our future episodes, we're not going to be talking about Andrew's brain tumour at all. We want you to turn on and have fun with us and just to enjoy what we're presenting and have a joyful, healing, regenerative time. We love it when our viewers tell us that they turn into our show to just cope with life better, to give themselves 90 minutes of feeling positive and re-energized.
Yeah. And people do write that they have used the show to get through hard times, which is incredibly
exactly
touching.
what we want.
Yep.
And we want to keep that. So we're not going to be talking about the tumour during any future episodes. But at the same time, we understand that many of you have been watching the show for 4 years. So you've really grown to love Andrew and care about him. And it's really natural for you to be thinking, how's he going? What's happening? Is it, and you want updates. So we understand that's a completely natural thing to be thinking. So we will give you updates, but it'll be outside of episodes. And we really want to say this in a strong way. If you don't hear anything from us, don't worry. Okay? We promise that we will tell you if things get worse. Okay? So if we get news, things are worse, we'll tell you. So that we want to put you in a position that if you don't hear anything, there's nothing to worry about. Just relax, enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
We promise we'll tell you if things get worse or things get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I just second that, what Andrea said. We love the fact that you enjoy the show, and this is I strongly believe in spreading joy in the world. It's one of the privileges of doing this show for me. So like Andrea said, that's what we're aiming for. Just one little thing, we haven't been through this sort of experience very often. We're just finding our way as to how to communicate about this, to what to say, what not to say. We will have some sort of boundaries. We do want some sort of privacy, and there will be some sort of boundaries. We haven't got any rules here, but you can know that there are some questions that we won't answer, and there are some things that we won't discuss, and I'm sure that's fine, but just to make it clear. So, just a couple of really practical things. We really encourage you to support us via Patreon. If you're enjoying the show, if you've been enjoying the show for a while, then maybe this is a really good time to get in and become a patron. Since this is an unusual situation, I wanted to cover a few questions that actually come up about Patreon, just to help out if you are thinking about it. First one is, you can pledge any amount you want with Patreon. We have 3 tiers of rewards defined for our show. We've got Hebridean, Merino, and Shetland, and in US dollars that means a pledge of $5 or $10 or $30. But most of our patrons just pledge one of those amounts. But you can choose any amount you want. So if you wanted to choose $7, there's one thing you can do that. There's just one thing that you need to watch, and this is something where people get stuck sometimes. If you want to choose $7, well, that's above $5, so it makes you eligible for the Hebridean rewards. So you want to go into Patreon, click on Hebridean. It will suggest $5. You just write in $7.
Or whatever amount you want.
Yeah, same. If you want to be really generous and go for $40, click on the Shetland, which is normally $30. Click on Shetland. It will suggest $30. You simply write in $40, and then it's good. That's important just to make sure that you get the rewards for those, for whatever tier it is. And
if you don't pick a tier, you won't be getting a reward no matter what you pledge.
Yeah. The same thing applies if you want to change levels. So if you want to go, what happens quite often is people decide they're Hebridean, so they're pledging $5, and they want to go up to the next level, Merino. You need to click on the Merino tier to do that, to make sure that you get those rewards. Right, so that's really easy. Click on the tier, and then if you need to change the amount, change the amount. So that's the first thing. Second thing, which is quite new, up until recently, Patreon only accepted pledges in US dollars. You could still make a pledge from anywhere in the world, but the amount would be converted into your credit card or PayPal currency, whatever. Recently, Patreon added the ability to make pledges in either euros or British pounds. So if that's one of your areas, it's just a little bit easier now. Like I said, you can still pledge from anywhere in the world, but for those other currencies right now, it's just that little bit more easy. Last thing I think on Patreon is it's not like a fitness studio. You're not going to get locked into a 12-month contract or anything like that. So you don't need to worry about that, and I think that's really good. So that's sort of the technical bits on Patreon. As Andrea said, producing the show is an ongoing effort, and we are going to keep doing it as much as we can. the regular income that we get from Patreon suits that really well. So like I said before, we really do encourage you to become a patron of the show. The link to do that, it's really easy. The link to do it should be on the screen now. It's patreon.com/fruityknitting. And you'll also find that link in the description below. You can click on it there, or you can go to fruityknitting.com and you'll find it there as well. Now, that's Patreon. At the same time as that, we know already that some viewers do want to make a one-off contribution to help us through this extraordinary situation, and we understand that. To let you do that, we've also got a link for PayPal. This is really straightforward. You can select any amount and any currency, just put it in there, and it's done. It's straightforward. So again, the link will be on the screen, and we've also got it in the description below and in our program notes at fruityknitting.com. So that's all that.
Yeah. I mean, basically, like I said, we have to keep producing the show to pay our bills and our extra medical expenses, because this is such a difficult type of cancer to treat. We are going to do some additional supporting therapies, and that means that our medical expenses will be added to.
Yep.
So, yeah. So just the final thing that we want to say is we really understand this is shocking news. We have dreaded sitting here and telling you about it. I hate telling people about it because it's actually, I just wish you knew about it without us having to tell you. It's a really difficult thing to be the bearer of bad news, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a really shocking thing, but we don't want you to dwell on the negativity of it. We really, really don't want that. We've got so much footage out there in our extreme knitting segments where you see Andrew really healthy in his beautiful athletic body, just running up and down Snowdon and in all these beautiful landscapes. We want you to just have that image in your head and just imagine Andrew healthy running up Mount Snowdon, like at the very end of the first episode, with a big smile on his face, and just imagine Andrew healed like that. Another thing I want to say is that we have got a really great viewership. Our viewers have many different beliefs and many different worldviews, and we really love this diversity of thought amongst our viewers. We think it's very healthy and very organic, and we really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But just for the people who believe in God or a higher being or a universal intelligence or whatever you call it, we do ask that you'll pray for Andrew. And if you're happy to do this, we ask you to pray with the feeling that Andrew has already been completely healed. So don't pray with sorrow in your heart, but pray with gratitude and joy and the visual image of Andrew being completely healed. And what a wonderful thing that is, and that joy and that gratitude that we would all feel. Okay, so we just ask you to please pray like that, and we will be very grateful for your prayers. That will be a real gift to us.
Yeah. Just quickly from me, this is shocking news, and I don't want to deny any of that. And I think we have to go through some sort of a grief, even if it's just a loss of the feeling of confidence or certainty or whatever it is. But at the same time, two things from me. Firstly, like Andrea said, we're aiming for me to be an exception.
One of the lucky ones.
Yeah. I sincerely believe in anomalies and
miracles,
outliers and whatever it is, and that's what I'm aiming for. So like Andrea said, picture that in your prayers. The other thing that's really important to me is there's so much to be grateful for in the world. This is really clear to me right now, but always, no matter what, big things and small things, there's so much to be grateful for, and I think that's a critical part of life, and having a good life is staying in touch with that.
Yeah.
So I think that's it from us.
So thank you for for being here with us.
Yeah.
And we will see you in a few weeks' time.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.